I just wanted to welcome a very, very, very special guest on with us today. She's not only an emergency room physician, but she's also a very popular social media influencer as well. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Cassie Majestic.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, if you could, we could just start. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Michigan, and a pretty small town where it was just me and my parents growing up. I have a couple of half brothers, but basically grew up an only child and knew I wanted to be a doctor from, gosh, I was like 10 years old, super interested in blood and gore and all the things on TV. If you're close to my age, you might remember Rescue 911. That was like my favorite show growing up. So being a doctor was always on my radar. And I moved away after high school to Arizona State. And once I graduated there with a bachelor's in biology, I went to the Ohio State University for med school and ended up in California for training, where I currently reside with my husband, who's a firefighter, and our 2 French bulldogs.
So that's awesome. You started in the Midwest, went down to kind of Southwest, and then went back to the Midwest, right? And that's awesome. I actually did my training in the Midwest too, and I can say Midwestern hospitality truly exists. It's such an awesome area, and the people from there are just amazing. Like, they're just amazing people, real friendly, real nice. What made you go into emergency medicine?
I think that I was always interested in something fast-paced. So that really drew me to the field at first. And then once I started shadowing and met, a lot of the people that worked in the ER, I kind of just felt like it was home for me. So really the people drew me in. And once I got to know kind of what the flow looks like in an emergency department, it was really, interesting to me to be able to be quick but efficient and safe, and get to know your patients within a span of like 5 minutes. So that's an art, and it's an art that I continue to work on mastering. So I love that part.
Yeah, and then so what's like a kind of typical day like for you? Or I know it's not always actually typical, but what's like a day like for you in the emergency department?
I know. I feel like there's no such thing as typical for an EM doctor because our schedule changes all the time. But when I'm in the ER, I'm, hardly sitting down. So going from room to room, working 8 to 10 hour shifts, that's just how our group runs it. And, it could be one room is a fracture. The next room is a super sick patient. The next room is a new cancer diagnosis, so it's always something different. And it's a lot of time management and, communication between your staff and the ER, and just like kind of hopping from one thing to the next. So it's busy. It's not for the faint of heart, I will say that, but it's enjoyable for me.
And then I know with kind of recent current affairs, there's probably brought up a lot of challenges for you and your department and your fellow emergency room physicians, right?
Very much so. And, you're already trying to work quickly while being safe in the emergency department, but you throw a pandemic into it. And, it took us a long time to figure out what our actual flow would be while giving people the best care, and still trying to get through everybody. So it's, you don't have control over who comes in and when they come in. So that was a huge challenge.
Right. Yeah. And then I know you were mentioning that you're married to a firefighter, another hero during this time and all the time, actually, right? And I know you guys have a really, really cute story about how you met and got together and the proposal and everything like that, right?
We do. We met on my last day of residency at UC Irvine. He and one of his medics brought in a patient, and there was a needle stick, and I'm allowed to tell the story. I have full permission to tell the story. There was a potential needle stick from his, like on his medic's end. So they brought him in, and I happened to be the resident at the time. We ended up chatting in the hallway, and it was like Facebook messages and texts after that. And pretty quickly, I think we realized we were meant for each other, and we got engaged in the exact same hallway. Somehow my husband was able to pull that off.
Wow, that's
With a little
great.
bit of coordination and help from the nurses.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. And so did he like just kind of ask the nurses ahead of time, is it okay if I propose here?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, an emergency department it can be a busy place. There can be patients in the hallways. So
Yeah.
he talked to, my boss and had everyone in on it because he had to get me there. So I thought I was coming in for a shift that was made up. And yeah, he really had a lot of help from the staff, and it was just such a memorable moment. So cool.
So what is it kind of like being married to a firefighter?
It's also not for the faint of heart, I will say. Yeah. Chris is so great. He's so good at, compartmentalizing and making sure that we have time together when we're both off, but that is a little bit out of our hands sometimes. So I will say that the schedule of a firefighter is tough on its own. And if you throw in an emergency medicine schedule on top of that, it can be really tough. So most of the time we're passing each other, in the night or early hours of the morning. But we make it work, in our off time. We certainly take all of that in and spend all the time we can together.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can only imagine. You guys are the epitome of a true power couple, seriously. And I remember once when we were looking, me and a colleague were looking at, and actually a flyer for a talk you were about to do at our hospital, and we saw your name, Cassie Majestic. We were like, that is the name of someone who should be a celebrity or who is a celebrity. So, so I wanted to kind of touch on, how did you kind of decide to develop, all your social media, and you have so many followers?
Well, I was really inspired by the fact that I started when it was new. So there were minimal medical providers on there at the time in 2015, I believe. And my goal was really to reach people that I wouldn't normally be able to reach. Right. Most people have a cell phone. So I thought, I'm going to get on there and I'm going to educate about medical and health topics. And it's going to be great. It definitely took a different turn than I expected. I thought I was going to choose my audience, but my audience really chose me in the end. And it ended up being kind of more of this lifestyle, wellness, balance, professional and personal, all in one type of account, which includes like a large following, I would say, from other healthcare professionals and, people who want to look and see, is this possible? What's a life in medicine going to look like? Right. So I thought I'd be educating patients. Really, I don't think I'm educating patients at all on Instagram, but I love where it brought me, and I love the community that we've all built together. So it's really great.
Yeah, I think you are inspiring a lot of patients, because I think your followers are patients too, And what I also love is that you have so many followers, but when people make comments on your beautiful pictures, you respond to them, which you don't always see with influencers. So the fact that you really reach out and connect to your audience is very unique and really speaks to your character too.
I felt like there were a lot of people on social media who were giving advice, but maybe didn't have the backing behind it. And I think it's great for anybody to be able to talk about what works for them or how they, manage their daily life. But I thought to myself, as a physician, I feel like I have a lot to give, and I have never believed in sugarcoating things or, pretending.
Right.
So I want to talk about the less glamorous things, the real life, what I'm really doing in my downtime, and it's not always pretty. So it's, having nice photos is a great part of Instagram. But I feel like there are other facets of social media, other areas in which you can really show yourself, like stories. Yeah. Or a blog, which, is a true passion of mine also. So I feel like I just wanted other people out there to know that yes, you can be a professional, but you also can like all of the other things that you want to like, and you can bring other passions into your life as a physician. You know, it's my whole life was medicine until I graduated, and I want people to know that there's more to life, and you need to experience that in order to keep yourself, you know, mentally healthy.
Yeah. And, you are a very, very busy emergency room physician. How do you maintain your work-life balance?
I think it's something you always have to reflect on because it changes so frequently, and that will be different in someone who has children versus someone who may not. So checking in with yourself regularly is super important. And I think just realizing like what your gut is saying is a huge part of health and wellness. So intuitive decision making. I love to teach about that and emphasize that, because I think if you're listening to like what makes you feel good versus what feels like icky, like if you're feeling like you don't want to do something and you say yes anyways, you're probably going to dread doing that thing. Right. So I like to listen to my gut a little bit more now than I used to, and teach others kind of how to do that too.
Yeah, great. That's awesome advice. And I know in your blogging and things like that, you have always actually been very open about even the road bumps you've experienced in your own life, and kind of keeping it real, for your all your many, many followers. Is it hard to open up?
Definitely. I think that a lot of people in my life have questioned if that's, smart, safe, a good idea, and I can see, why people might think that it's tough. It is tough, but it also comes with a lot of rewards. And I think that you can meet and network with a lot of really great people on social media who you wouldn't otherwise meet. And in turn, that can open a lot of doors and fill your cup with a lot of things that you maybe didn't even think about before. Right. So you kind of have to have thick skin, but I mean, that's not new for an emergency medicine provider. So
that's very true. I really love that you make it clear that Botox is not just what people think it's about, right? It's actually for a lot of other things that people may not think about. For example, someone who has like palmar hyperhidrosis or like sweaty palms, or even like, other areas that might have sweat, it's pretty anxiety inducing, right? So, definitely. Just things like that also really helps people, right?
Definitely. And I think that breaking into that industry was never something that was on my radar until I met someone through social media, again, that I was friends with for a long time before I even started. But I believe that in my line of work, I've really learned how important self-care is. And it doesn't have to be injectables for everybody, but I have learned that there are natural ways of doing that. And for people who want the option, why not? And again, I would rather be able to be out there educating on it and hopefully making patients feel good about it, instead of just watching while, knowing it's something I could do, but I'm just not going to do because I'm scared of doing it, So I think it's been another total, eye opener for me in terms of education and health and wellness. And it's been really fun too.
Yeah. And again, you are doing such a great job educating your many followers and your audience about it too, which is awesome and inspiring too. So, all right. And Dr. Majestic, any last take-home messages for our audience today?
I think that I really just want to emphasize, living a life that you are inspired by and that will inspire others. I think that when we surround ourselves with the things that we love, even if it's not the things that everyone else thinks you should be doing, you really start to internally appreciate yourself and your life and those that are there for you. Mm-hmm. And that may not be everybody. It may not be the people you thought it would be, and it may not be the things that you thought you'd be doing. But I like to say, look for the little doors, and every time a door opens, you can decide whether to walk through it or not. Keep walking through those doors and see where you find yourself, look inside yourself and see if those are places that little decisions that you want to make, and they can have a huge impact, on where you end up in 10 years.
Right, definitely. And so thank you again so much, Dr. Majestic, for being with us today. You are truly just an amazing person, definitely a hero. And again, I really love that you are able to share your life and your awesome message and great advice to your many, many followers. So thank you so much again, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to thank Dr. Matthew Dawson so much for joining us today. Not only is he a ER physician extraordinaire, he's also an entrepreneur, a longtime educator, author of multiple textbooks, a podcast host. And again, we're going to get into all of his really, really wonderful businesses as well. So thank you so much again, Dr. Dawson, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Great. And so if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself to start.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a physician, but I have a lot of other interests as well. Although I went into medicine wanting to help people, I definitely have an entrepreneurial itch. And I think one of the ways as physicians we can expand our reach and be able to help more people is sometimes to start a business. If there's a need for something and you see a need there, if you can solve that problem, then we can help even more people.
Yeah, great. That's wonderful. And so I know you mentioned you're an ER physician. What made you choose emergency medicine?
Yeah, when I was in medical school, I mean, obviously we rotate through everything, and I just really enjoyed the pace, being able to see a lot of different patients in one shift and the variety. That was the place I was most excited when I rotated through. Being able to manage multiple things at one time. And I think it's similar to having a business as well and being an entrepreneur, being able to wear multiple different hats and juggle different issues at the same time.
Right. And then, so what's like a typical shift for you like in the ER?
A typical shift, and honestly, I've converted to mostly the business things now, and 90% of my time is spent practicing precision medicine now and genomics. And I only do maybe 1 or 2 shifts a month. So it's a traditional ER shift that's busy and hectic and you're exhausted when you're finished. But 90% of my time now as a physician is spent doing precision medicine and genomics.
Awesome. Great. I mean, and 1 to 2 per month, along with your very, very busy entrepreneur schedule is still very, very, very commendable, Dr. Dawson. That's awesome. And then, so has COVID-19 affected a lot of your kind of work and businesses and life recently?
It has a lot. As I mentioned, my main job now is leading Wild Health. So it's a genomics-based precision medicine company. So what we do is every patient we see, we sequence their DNA, microbiome, blood work, and we have an algorithm based on some artificial intelligence that comes up with what is the optimal diet for you, exercise, mindfulness, sleep. We try to optimize the health of our patients. When the pandemic hit, our patients had the same problem as a lot of other people around the world, and they couldn't get tests. So because we are doing kind of deep science work, we had a lab. One of our PhDs had a PhD in infectious disease, and I called him and said, hey, can you do the CDC gold standard PCR test? And he could. He just needed some equipment. So we bought that, started doing that for our patients. Quickly, their friends and family wanted tests as well. Then we started getting calls from multiple other businesses, and it kind of snowballed until finally the University of Kentucky reached out to us and said, can you test all of our students going back? And at this point, we have tested in a lot of states. We've done probably 500,000 COVID-19 tests. We have done it for multiple universities, for the state of Kentucky. And we've actually kind of developed a lab that had probably the fastest turnaround times in the nation. We were getting them back in less than 12 hours, at least 24 hours. And then that snowballed into when it came time for vaccines, the state called us and said, hey, with your infrastructure, 900 contractors, can you distribute the vaccine? So now our big lift is distributing the vaccine to all of Kentucky. So COVID-19 has certainly changed our business in many ways.
Wow, that's incredible, Dr. Dawson. Thank you so much for all you do. You are definitely helping to bring down this coronavirus pandemic for sure. And, I know that the development of Wild Health kind of came from your background, right? So what kind of inspired you to develop Wild Health?
Sure. So At the time when we started Wild Health, what my co-founder Mike and I were doing is we were teaching other physicians and residents and med students. We were teaching point of care ultrasound. So that was kind of what everyone knew us as. But when we weren't lecturing or teaching, what we were kind of obsessed with was optimizing our health. And we started seeing the literature and the science coming out saying, you know what, it looks like personalized medicine, we actually can do this now. We can look at someone's DNA and design a plan for them based on their DNA. So we started with ourselves and we solved a couple pretty big issues for ourselves. Mike, I still remember where I was teaching a conference in San Francisco and I got a text from him and his lipids, his cholesterol was really high and he was really struggling with that. I suggested a diet for him. He went on it and he got worse. His physician wanted to start him on a statin and we were worried about myopathy, muscle breakdown. And sure enough, that happened to him. But once we got our genetics back, we saw almost immediately that he needed to be on the opposite diet of what I'd recommended. And we saw he had a SNP, a single nucleotide polymorphism, that made him almost guaranteed to have that myopathy and muscle breakdown. And we were kind of angry at first. We're like, why did his physician not know this? And then we realized no one knows this. No one's practicing this way. And that sent us down a rabbit hole, really looking at all this research and science and seeing that, you know what, it's there. We're just not doing it. And so we ended up seeing our friends and family. We got amazing results and we left our university jobs and said, we're going to go all in. Like, this is how medicine should be practiced. And we've seen thousands of patients since then. And it's just a really exciting field to be in.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. That just seems so innovative and really just the way of the future, really. And I know you're also a longtime educator as well. You've got the Ultrasound Leadership Academy, multiple textbooks, podcast. You're obviously a leader in education in your field. Could you touch a little bit upon that too?
Sure. When we first came out of residency, Mike and I saw point of care ultrasound as being something that was going to revolutionize emergency medicine, the ICU, and a few other specialties. And so we dove into that, similar to kind of the genomics, and we learned as much as we could. We started teaching others. And it really it's a tool that really allows physicians to quickly look inside someone's body and find out, okay, why are they coming in here coding into the OR? What is going on? Why are they septic? And as we got more and more into that, we realized, similar to the genomics, this is something that not a lot of physicians are doing yet. And so we started teaching that on a bigger and bigger scale. We have taught dozens of courses on every continent other than Antarctica. We created the Ultrasound Leadership Academy, which was a 12-month fellowship that we've taken about 1,000 physicians through. We'll have someone in a resource-rich country who actually pays for it, and then for every person that goes through it, someone in a resource-limited country gets a free tuition as well. So we put a lot of physicians through that project, and it was just a need that we saw. And we felt like we were able to solve that need.
And among your other many business entrepreneurships, you are also the part owner and CEO turned CFO of a beautiful, famous Kentucky landmark, the Kentucky Castle. Could you talk a little bit about that as well?
Sure. It's kind of a funny and a long story.
No, we'd love to hear it. And for anyone who has not seen or been to that castle, I highly, highly recommend it. It's even, I think celebrities get married there too. So
yeah, we've had some interesting guests for sure. So the castle is, it's funny. I was on a run in the desert in New Mexico and I just stopped and I was like, I want to do an ultrasound conference in that weird castle. And so it took a long time to get someone to allow me to do it. And that's how we knew the castle. We did a medical conference there every year. We've done it for about 10 years, I think. And a few years ago, I'd gotten to know the owner pretty well, and he was ready to sell it. And our physicians had just had such a great time because it was different. It wasn't a hotel lobby; it was a different experience. And so we purchased it. My main interest, honestly, I really like how you noticed my change in title. So I gave myself a promotion recently from CEO to CFO, and what the F stands for is not finances or financial, like most people would assume, but it's farmer. So I'm the chief farming officer. So I've always been interested in the farm, and so the castle to me it's almost a Trojan horse. It's a really cool and nice thing. But when I get people here, we're based on 110 acres, a working farm. We have horses, goats, sheep, llamas, bull, bees, chicken, massive organic gardens. 80% of the food we serve in the restaurant, we grow on site. And that's what gets me excited. When I think of health, I think of health starting with what you eat, but not just what you eat, but what you eat eats. And what I mean by that is the animals and plants, the soil that feeds them. And so I'm very focused on the soil and the soil health and teaching people about where their health comes from. Food doesn't come from the grocery store. It comes from our land. And that message is something we're trying to impart on people.
Right. And you're so right about that. I like how, as part of your business, you're still going into the health aspects of your business too. And even running a business, you're still like, such as the Kentucky Castle, you're still helping to improve everyone's health, even when they come and visit you. So that's absolutely awesome. So Dr. Dawson, I remember reading an article about you and about just how I know how busy you are. So thank you so much again for joining us, but that you still respond to emails really quickly. And I can even really attest to that too. So obviously you have a beautiful wife and 4 kids. You're a physician. You're running multiple businesses to, improve education and improve the lives and health of a lot of people. How do you maintain that work-life balance?
I probably don't very well, but the best part of that is just, it's all about the team around you. So you're looking and talking to me right now, but we have 100 or so incredible employees at the castle. I don't spend really any time there. I have a great COO named Christy who runs that, her and our general manager. They're incredible. When it comes to Wild Health, we have a massive team between Mike, my co-founder, and then so many others on the team. We have 900 or so or 1,000 contractors now. And so anything that I do, I've always said to everyone that it's important what you do, but it's even more important who you do it with. And bringing great people who share the vision alongside you is how you're going to accomplish something. We all have 24 hours in a day, and we have to sleep and we have to eat, and our children need us and our significant others need us. So we really need a team that shares a vision if we want to accomplish something big.
I think that you maintain a really good work-life balance, seriously. So again, Dr. Dawson, you're just incredible. Do you have any advice for people who, either want to pursue emergency medicine or business entrepreneurship like you have?
Yeah, I think in the fact that you mentioned both of those, I think is important. What I would say to you is do what you love and you're great at, and don't be limited. Don't limit yourself. If you, for example, want to do both, you want to do emergency medicine and you want to do business, great. Do them both. But find a way to kind of bring it together with the castle. Like you mentioned, my obsession is health. And I tell people that I'm a physician who wants to be a farmer when he grows up. But all of those things like Wild Health, Ultrasound Leadership Academy, emergency medicine, the castle, the farming, it's all about one thing, which is health and optimizing humans. And so it may look like I'm all over the place, but not really. It's all kind of leading back to one thing. So you find your passion, whether it's health and optimizing health, like it is for me, and then don't think that you are an ER doctor or you are an entrepreneur or you are one thing. You are you, and do what you love and pursue as many of those passions as you want.
Thank you so much again, Dr. Dawson. I know just how busy you are, again, with just everything that you're running. So thank you again. And seriously, you are such a hero in this whole time frame of ours, with this whole pandemic going on and all that you're doing to help bring down this COVID crisis and everything. So thank you so much again. I cannot thank you enough.
I really appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun talking to you, and yeah, thank you so much.